After trying almost every super shoe in 2024, this one has left me the most confused. So let's talk about it. This is the On Cloudboom Strike. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today we're going to be talking about the On Cloudboom Strike, and if it's your first time here, you may notice some timestamps in the description below. Feel free to jump around to various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you came back and watched the full video when you get a sec, because I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you're not already subscribed and you've come back to watch some more, then please hit that subscribe button below and turn on notifications so you get notifications for when I drop a new video or review. Now, before I get to the review, let's just talk about some few disclaimers and disclosures, which are I was provided this shoe for the purpose of a review directly from On. That being said, they didn't ask me to make any specific content. They don't give me a script, talking points, anything. No one gets to watch the videos beforehand. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of the shoe. Now, the On Cloudboom Strike is a super shoe specifically built for marathon racing, but as most of you know by now, super shoes can also be used just in racing in general or for runs where you just want to go fast. As such, that's how we're going to be evaluating the shoe. From a price perspective, the shoe comes in at $280, which is honestly expensive, but also on par with most super shoes nowadays. Most of them will generally fall in the $250 to $300 range. And so with that in mind, I would say that it is accurately or fairly priced. From a specs perspective, the shoe weighs in at 7.5 ounces, or for my non-US residents, 212.6 grams, and I believe that is in a men's size 9. Heel to toe drop, you've got 43 in the heel and 39 in the forefoot for a 4mm heel to toe drop. As far as fit goes, lengthwise, the shoe fits a little bit long. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you size down though, as the shoe also does fit narrow from a width perspective. And so I wear my normal 10.5 in the shoe and it feels great as far as that length goes. But again, going back to the width, this is one of the more narrow and lower volume overall shoes than I've worn in a long time. I would categorize the heel and the midfoot as legitimately narrow, and then I would say that it is a standard overall toe box. But again, part of the snug fit is the volume, not necessarily just the width too, so there's just not a whole lot of space for your foot in the shoe. Now, breaking down the shoe and moving on to the upper, this is what's called a one-piece transparent mesh. So you can see there that you actually can see through the shoe to your foot. You'll be able to see your socks. And there on the medial side, same thing. You can see some paneling underneath that mesh right there. The result is a very, very breathable overall upper. It's very much a race day fit. And again, race day fits do tend to fit a little bit snug, so it's not necessarily uncharacteristic of a super shoe to have a snug fit, but this one is especially snug or narrow compared to some other brand counterparts. Now, that upper creates a very lightweight experience, which is very, very nice, but it can be a little bit difficult to get on. The tongue is not gusseted, but it is actually stitched into the shoe. So it is a separate piece of material. It's kind of one of these thin fabric. It's got some stretch material there in the tongue, but it is actually sewn onto the sides of the shoes, and you can actually see right there the stitching. So the tongue doesn't really budge. As such, you just kind of have to squeeze your foot in. Once it's in, you're good to go. But at times I felt like you didn't even really need to tie down the laces because the shoe does keep you locked in place, which is kind of funny because the shoe does come in a light spray version, which is laceless, but this is the lace version, obviously, as you can tell. Now, because the shoe does fit snug, the lockdown is really, really nice. And because you're going fast in this shoe, you know, I tested it on a variety of runs. I didn't have any shifting whatsoever. My feet stayed put and I felt very, very secure in the shoe. One thing to note though is that there is some potential rubbing and hot spots with this upper, one of them being in the heel. These little cushion pieces here in the heel can be a little bit abrasive, and so some people have had issues with chafing, it actually rubbing the skin raw on that Achilles area. Personally, I wore Balega blister resist socks anytime I wore these shoes, and that took care of it. I did not have any issues there, but I did feel a little bit of rubbing up here up front where kind of the tongue ends. And so it did just kind of rub a tiny, tiny bit, didn't form a full blister. But again, something to keep in mind if you tend to get hot spots on your feet. Overall, when it comes to the upper, I like the material. I would have liked maybe a little bit more volume, and that might not be the upper. That might have to do a little bit with the midsole, and I'll talk about why. But I also would just maybe like to see a different lacing system or just laces in general, I just felt like they weren't the best lace choice for the shoe. But again, the upper got the job done. I didn't have too many issues with friction with the upper, so for the most part, I can't really complain. Moving to the midsole, this is one of the most unique midsoles, and it's something about the shoe that did kind of confuse me. And let me explain. Now, when I say confuse, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but this shoe comes with a drop-in midsole. So you can see right there, this is a PIBA base drop-in midsole. They call this a bounce board. So this is bounce board technology. And then directly underneath that midsole, you actually have the carbon fiber speed board, or carbon fiber plate. You then have this kind of extra layer or outer layer of foam, which kind of keeps you structured, and it is also made of PIBA or Pebax. Now, I saw one reviewer say that this is the most humbly fast shoe that they have ever worn, and I think that's the perfect way to describe it, because for some reason, with how low that plate sits in the shoe, and then having that bounce board technology or that PIBA layer on top with the drop-in midsole, the shoe feels very soft and is actually not super rigid feeling underfoot. But as you can see, there is a lot of rigidity still. But while you're running on foot, the midsole kind of compresses within the shoe and it's soft. And it doesn't feel like you're going very fast, but then you look at your pace, and literally every workout that I did repeats, cut downs, pyramid workouts, progression long runs, all these different types of long runs and drop sets and intervals, just a lot of speed work in the shoe. And I did not miss a pace in any workout in this shoe. In fact, a lot of my paces felt very, very effortless. The shoe doesn't pop off the ground the same way. It kind of compresses and just gives you this smooth transition forward, but it is a fast shoe. And honestly, I think that I would take this out for a half marathon. For a full marathon though, I would be a little bit concerned because the resulting feeling of that midsole foam in kind of that drop-in midsole compressing underfoot almost makes you feel like you're on like a rounded platform. So I felt a little bit unstable in the shoe, and my feet did get a little bit fatigued later on in runs. But even when fatigued, the shoe still continued to feel fast. Now, I don't feel like I should have to clarify this, but I'm going to because I still get questions around this, but this is a speed-specific shoe. So no, you should not run in this shoe daily. It is not made for daily miles. So this is where the shoe kind of confuses me, because I personally didn't love the feeling underfoot, but I loved how fast it made me. And I felt very relaxed and in control regardless of pace, and was able to continually hit my paces. So as such, I have to say, like, the midsole's good. It's a good midsole. It propels you forward. It does its job. It's just maybe not the sensation that I am either used to or prefer underfoot, or I've grown to know with kind of faster shoes, which tend to be a little bit more poppy or snappy. But at the end of the day, frankly, if you're hitting your paces, it doesn't really matter. Moving on to the outsole, that's a unique rubber compound. You can see that it looks like there's wear and tear kind of in the heel there, and even up here in the forefoot and kind of the midfoot. But the reality is that actually is intentional, so I didn't wear the traction away. It just kind of has almost this faded traction pattern on the shoe. The outsole was surprisingly grippy. So I actually ran on the track multiple times. I ran on the roads. I ran in rain. I actually ran in light snow, not with fresh powder on the ground or anything like that, but I felt very, very secure underfoot. There wasn't any slipping around whatsoever. Hit a few puddles and was not concerned. So the grip is really good. And for a race day shoe, I do think that matters, because you train so hard only to show up on race day. And if it's downpouring and your shoes are slick, then that could rob you of a PR or a really, really good race. So I appreciate when a racing shoe has a good rubber compound, and I do like the rubber underfoot here. Now, as far as who's this shoe for, you know, super shoes are very, very individual. So I think the shoe could do really good for individuals who like a slightly softer ride, but are still looking for a fast shoe, right? That is still lightweight on foot. If I think of kind of the softer super shoe compounds or the softer super shoes out there, I think kind of the New Balance SC Elite as well as the Hoka Cielo X1. And both of those shoes, the Cielo X1's a little bit heavy, and the SC Elite is almost like overly squishy, where I don't feel the fastest in that shoe all the time. This kind of gives you a unique geometry that is still kind of sleek. And again, you don't feel like super pop off the ground, but it is very, very smooth, and you really do kind of hit your paces. And so someone who wants a slightly softer ride while still getting kind of the speed of a more snappier shoe might be looking at the Cloudboom Strike. If you're running a race and you know that there tends to be kind of potential rain on race day, again, another good shoe with a good outsole that you could potentially use. And then if you're a narrow-footed individual, this is a very narrow and snug shoe. So if you're looking for a shoe where you want really good lockdown and you struggle to get good lockdown in racing shoes, this might be a good option for you. From a foot strike standpoint, I feel like the shoe bias is more forefoot strikers. I did feel, again, that it was a little bit unstable at times. And so I think you're just going to be more in control if you're landing on the balls of your feet, or maybe midfoot strikers would be okay. But many midfoot strikers tend to default to a heel strike as they fatigue on longer races. So I think this is a true forefoot striker shoe. Again, one of the reasons why I maybe could only use it for a half, but maybe wouldn't take it for a full, is because sometimes I will fall on my heels as I fatigue as well. Now, as far as comparisons go, this is really interesting because I don't feel like you get the same underfoot feel in any shoe. The SC Elite is an interesting thought because I do think that foam is very soft and squishy, and it's almost as if you stick this foam into a container. So you get the compression of this foam, but then it's surrounded by a container or with a plate underfoot, right? So you kind of get, again, the soft feeling, but with the speed, with the propulsion, just not with the pop or snap. So I think the SC Elite may be an option. If you liked the SC Elite, but it was maybe too wide for you, then the Cloudboom Strike could be a good option for a more narrow or slimmer option there. Just from like a geometry standpoint, I felt like how the shoe travels from heel to toe or just kind of propels you forward or rolls forward, it was similar in my mind to the Endorphin Speed 4, the Endorphin Pro 4. Now, the Endorphin Pro 4 is much snappier, and I think it is a little bit more stable as well. It's not going to be quite as soft. It's not going to compress quite as much underfoot. And so for me, I feel faster in the Endorphin Pro, but I might be faster in the Cloudboom Strike. Again, confusing sensation, confusing feeling, but one of the faster shoes that I have tried this year, really kind of surprising me with my miles. Now, the last shoe that I would kind of compare this to is actually either the Hoka Rocket X2 or the Hoka Mach X2, just in terms of kind of the upper and how they fit fairly snug and how they may be a little bit difficult to get on at times. Just to give you a visualization, I don't think the underfoot feel of those two shoes are similar to this by any means, but just from a upper perspective of how you get that shoe on and kind of the materials that you're dealing with, it just kind of gave me those vibes overall. So that might be what you're kind of dealing with there. Now, as far as within the On brand, I haven't tried the Cloudboom Echo, so I can't necessarily speak to that line. My understanding is those are a little bit more firm or poppier, and they tend to have a higher drop as well. So this is a 4mm drop. It might be a better option for those who aren't looking for a higher drop shoe, but my understanding is this is a big departure from the Cloudboom Echo line. So there you go. That's the Cloudboom Strike, one of the more confusing shoes, but one I've really, really enjoyed getting miles in. And again, if I was racing a half marathon tomorrow, I do think this is the shoe that I would put on my foot. It is humbly fast. It is kind of a confusing but good overall experience, and I'm really glad that I got the chance to try these and really test them out and put them through the ringer. Now, I do hope to be able to try the light spray version of the shoe as well. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, and I'm really curious to see if On is going to update the shoe next year, or if we're going to get a Cloudboom Echo 4, or what that's really going to look like. On tends to update shoes every other year as opposed to every year, at least with kind of their standard models. So I will be at the running event actually next week. When this posts, I'm actually probably at the running event right now. So if I'm able to share details, I'll update you guys, have some video, kind of show you what's to come from a lot of the major brands. Obviously, there's going to be some stuff that I can't talk about or can't show there as well. So if I can, again, I'll give you guys an update on what's coming from On. Really, really think that they are on the right track with this shoe though. Now, if you've watched this far, I sure appreciate it. Please leave a comment, ask any questions about the shoe, or just let me know what I can be doing better as a shoe reviewer so I can improve these reviews for each and every one of you. And with that, we'll close it out. And as always, I'll leave you with a question, which is, what is your surprise shoe of 2024? Let me know down below. Thanks, everybody.